So, welcome back to this week's edition of Impactful Teamwork. I'm going to do something a little bit different today to talk to you about because I've just come across an incredible article from HR World. And it's on 15 leadership behaviors that push teams away. And I usually like to keep this podcast really positive about really positive things you can do. But I think this research that's come about from a company called Kick Resume is really pertinent for us to realize things that we might be doing as leaders that maybe we don't realize that we're doing. And so powerful because sometimes when we're trying to do things in a positive, what are the things that we want to achieve? How do we want to be as a leader? Sometimes that's difficult to compile that list of traits, maybe, for example, that we want to have as a leader. And sometimes it's easier to know the things we don't want to be doing. This is a technique I've been using with quite a few of my coaching clients recently who have been trying to figure out, well, what's their purpose? What's the direction? Where do they want to go in life? And those kind of lofty questions are sometimes really difficult for us to answer. And sometimes it's actually easier for us to look at the things that we don't want to have in our life, in our future, if we were thinking about our purpose, to help narrow it down. As I said, today we're going to look at 15 leadership behaviors that actually push team members away. Because when managers micromanage, they take credit for other people's work. Maybe in the worst cases, they cancel somebody's vacation. They're actually turning into a horrible boss. And this recent Kick Resume report revealed that 85% of workers feel that their boss's behavior harms their work-life balance, and many are ready to quit. And so what I want to explore today are some of the toxic leadership behaviors that exist out there and why leadership must shift from trying to be in control to building trust and empowering team members. Because I think we've probably all worked for bosses that aren't great. I know I did a short piece of contracting for a gentleman and he was very controlling. And as a result, the workplace that he had created was very toxic. And what I really observed, and thankfully I was only a contractor and in there for a short period of time, but what I really observed with his team members was that people didn't want to go the extra mile because they were really worried about how their work would be judged. So there was pretty much no psychological safety. And nobody would step up and be empowered and go the extra mile because of their fear of judgment and recrimination. What does a controlling boss look like? They are the type of bosses and leaders who always want everything done their way. There's no opportunity for flexibility or innovation. Everything has to go through them. They want to know the status on everything. And one of the problems is that when we've got this high level of control within an organization, that actually the leader becomes a bottleneck and they actually stop the business from growing. And what we also know to be true is that right now we have a more diverse workforce than ever before. And the culture of workplaces has changed. Gone are the days where team members followed every command of their bosses, right or wrong, unquestionably. People in the older days, and probably even when I first started working, this was still the case. We did what we were told to do out of duty and the fact that we wanted to keep our jobs and we get a decent paycheck. But things have shifted fundamentally in the workplace, and today's workforce comprises Gen Z and younger professionals. But they're not duty bound, but they're very self-aware and they're less likely to tolerate control in the name of compliance. And they're actually more inclined to challenge authority that compromises respect. And when they do face behavior that's very controlling and comes from an authoritarian place, they tend to disengage and really consider quitting. And I've seen this with some of the younger team members when I freelance and do some of my catering work that I do. it's all about respect and with them and relationships. And if you tell them what to do, they have no qualms if they don't agree about walking off the job. I've even had that situation with some of the younger generation when guests in the restaurant, the team member feels that the guest has been rude or derogatory to them, are like, I'm just leaving. I don't need to tolerate that anymore. So we've got some very different dynamics going on in the workplace. And what this report from Kikrizume showed up was that 85% of working professionals from around the world, so it's not just UK or US, this is globally, say that they work under a horrible manager or boss who negatively affects their work-life balance. So 85% of people think their bosses negatively affect their work-life balance, and 70% of them are seriously considering leaving their jobs due to their manager's behavior. And that 70% is a statistic I've heard many times where we talk about team members don't leave jobs, they actually leave bad managers. And this is why it's so important that we invest in developing the talent and the upcoming management that we've got within the organization so that they don't fall into these traps that we're going to be sharing today. Because we know that a lot of our team members are very mobile and retention is pretty fragile. So how managers and leaders treat their teams isn't just a cultural issue, it's a business risk. Because treat our team members unfairly, not in a great way, and it has implications on retention, morale, and ultimately performance. I think the real difficulty that managers have right now is how do we manage and navigate that situation between getting the work done, i.e. meeting the performance deadlines, whilst also meeting the needs of our team members. Because in the old era, in the old paradigm, team members were just told to do something, they did it, and so the performance was achieved. But as we said, now the workforce isn't prepared to tolerate that. And so managers and leaders have this dilemma about how to manage both their people and the performance to get both of the results. And it's a very fine line in terms of what we're doing. But the research found 15 traits that commonly were found in what they call bad or horrible managers, as they refer them to in this research, that damage both team morale and organizational culture. So what are they? They've given them kind of fun names, so please bear with me as I share these with you. They call the first type of horrible leadership the Royal Highness. So what is this? These are people that they believe are narcissistic bosses, and they seek constant admiration, reward, confirmation from their team members. And they treat disagreement as disloyalty. So they dismiss others' ideas and they expect their word to be final, regardless of the input or facts that the team give them. So the Royal Highness is, it's my way or the highway, for want of a better word. My decisions are final. I don't need any input. And we know that there is so much wealth of knowledge that exists within our team members. We live in an environment where one person can't know everything. So if, as a manager, you adopt the Royal Highness approach, you believe you're the one that knows everything. And yet we know that we live in a world where that's not possible. And this is why we're moving towards teamship and shared leadership. The second type of horrible leadership they identify is what they call the mood swinger. And perhaps some of you have experienced a type of leader like this. I know I have. They're one whose emotional state dictates the office environment. So one day they're cheerful and the next day they're lashing out without warning. And what does that do? It makes team members really hesitant to approach the leader because they don't know what version they're going to get. Are they going to get the nice, friendly leader, or are they going to get the horrible leader who's going to shout at them that day? So this is why emotional intelligence is so important as a leadership skill, because As a leader, we need to learn how to regulate our emotions. We can't keep coming in this flux of emotional states because it's really disconcerting for our team members and creates a lot of uncertainty for them in the workplace. The third type of boss is the insecure boss. This is the type of leader who feels threatened by others' confidence and constantly seeks reassurance. And what that means is they can reject ideas and block growth opportunities just to stay in power. So, what they can do is inadvertently, or actually more likely deliberately, they're stopping their team members' growth because they don't want to share things that their team have come up with because of fear of how it might reflect on them. Hands up. I know that I've demonstrated the insecure boss. And I think the time that I would recognize mostly that I did that was when I was hiring team members. I was always conscious that if I looked at a CV, a resume of somebody who was super, super skilled, had some amazing attributes I didn't have, that made me become very insecure. And I actually wouldn't hire them or even review their CVs at some cases and have them in for a screening interview because I was worried about how that would reflect on me. Fourth type of manager or leader is the big brother. And these are the managers that want a say in every task and decision or email, and they are total micromanagers. And then they become the bottleneck. They slow down teamwork, and that kills the confidence of the team because nobody wants to step up and make a decision for fear that they're going to get it wrong. And so the kind of way that we see this behavior showing up in the workplace is that the team are required to CC their manager on everything because they need to know exactly what is being done. And again, we know this is not a good use of leadership time and energy and effort being this big brother because there's so much going on. Actually, how the big brother manager and leader doesn't fall into burnout would be beyond me because I think you would quite quickly. The fifth type of horrible leader is the underminer. They're somebody who discredits somebody else's work, often in front of others, in order to elevate themselves. So they're the sort of person who shoots down your idea, even though you do a great piece of work and prepare it. They put their name on it. So all of their peers and their bosses think they did it when you actually did it. So they're trying to undermine the rest of the team in order to make themselves look good. And trust me, that's a really demotivating place to be. Then the sixth type of horrible leader is the favoritist. This is the type of leader who creates inner circles, reward their members only, regardless of performance, and everyone else is sidelined. If you're not in the clique, you are not getting all the benefits that exist. As a leader, we need to ensure that we need to have great relationships with everyone in the team, but that we're not over favoritizing, I'm not even sure if that's a word, favoritizing some, maybe it's an individual, maybe it's a sub team or teams over the rest of the organization. We need to treat everyone fairly and have that equality there. Another type of leader, number 7, is the metrics man. This is the type of leader and manager who only cares about the targets and the deliverables and not about the people achieving them. And they don't care about team members' effort, burnout, and well-being. They're the sort of bosses that want you to stay late even though you're exhausted, you've got some family commitments. It's a bit like let's leading with a gun, do this, and you have no opportunity for any creativity or flexibility. They just need to get the work done, whatever it costs to the team. Eighth type of horrible leader is what we call the yeller. This is all about loudness. Those managers that equate authority with loudness, often raising a voice to assert control or express frustration. And so they're creating this climate of fear where team members dread even the most minor slip up because they're not sure again of the response. This goes back to the one we talked about earlier on, the mood swinger, where this leader doesn't really have the emotional intelligence to manage how they're showing up. Number 9 is the emo blackmailer. So these types of managers use guilt trips, emotional manipulation, passive aggressive remarks to put pressure on others to comply. And so rather than having healthy, honest conversations with direct communications, they rely on making team members feel responsible for their emotional state or workload. What's an example let's give you of this? That this is the type of manager who will go, it's fine, I'll handle it by myself. It's not your cup of tea. So they're taking everything upon themselves. It's fine, I'll handle it. I'll stay till 9 o'clock to get it done. And therefore, in that way, you can feel a bit of blackmail because they have to stay late in order to get it done. So this is an example of the emo blackmailer. Number 10 is the thief, very closely related to the underminer. The thief is somebody who regularly presents work as their own, especially in front of leaders. They take the credit for the team project without mentioning who contributed to it. This is actually quite a big topic I've been having with a number of my coachees recently, where this has been a real problem for them. And I see this happening more and more in organizations where there is a lot of uncertainty going on. People aren't sure if there might be a round of redundancies going on. So everyone's trying to get in, show themselves in the best light. And there's really just a lot of egos going on, and that's not helpful to anyone. Number 11, I love this. This is the leader who we call the ghost. And this is the type of leader that's MIA, missing in action. They're rarely available for guidance or feedback. They leave their teams directionless, especially during critical moments. So maybe they never show up to one-on-ones, they never respond to urgent messages. And that's the ghost type of leader. And that's actually a really difficult leader for a team member to deal with because they know they need to go to this person, but they're just not getting the response from them. Number 12 is the conservative, the one who hates and shuts down new ideas or change, and they cling to outdated procedures. So under their leadership and management, innovation is stifled because they reject new ideas, saying, that's not how we've done it in the past. Let's stick to what we know and how it works. But we know we're living in an era of massive reinvention. And this conservative approach to leadership, where we just want to stick to the tried and tested, just isn't going to create an organization that's going to survive and thrive in the longest term. Number 13 is the gossiper, the leader who spreads rumors or confidential information. And all that does is fuel mistrust within the team that they can't be relied on. The sorts of person, a gossiper is the type of manager that talks about people behind their back, very disrespectful. And what it does is it shuts down team members. It means people don't want to ever share anything because they're not sure what's going to get reshared on. So that's a real bad management habit to have. 14th is what we call the meet me manager. This is the kind of manager who loves meetings more than the outcomes. So we have unnecessary discussions, and this kills a massive amount of productive hours. Often they're scheduling meetings for something that could have happened in an email. They're not being very discerning about the best way of getting their message across. And they're just thinking meetings are the answer. But a lot of the meetings are just wasted time talking round and round in circles about things rather than a short, sharp meeting with this is what we need to discuss. Here are the actions. Here's who's doing what by when. So that they have some clear outcomes. These often don't. And the last type of leader is the no clock man. Leaders who are always late to meetings and deadlines, but expect that punctuality from others. And, for me, this is a massive red flag. As leaders, I think we need to walk the talk. We need to do what we expect others to do. I talk about leadership is about the behaviors. So if we want our team to be on time as a leader, we absolutely must be on time because we're always training the people around us about what we expect from them. So if we're always late to meetings, we're sending a signal to the rest of the team that it's okay to be late to meetings. So These kind of 15 horrible leadership traits are unfortunately widely present in today's workplace environments. And they're not just frustrating, actually, they're really corrosive. And we all appreciate that as managers, particularly when we're starting off in our career, we can all make mistakes. We can all be a little bit inconsistent in our leadership journey. But when we find team members doing these types of behaviors consistently, that's a big red flag for me because they are having such a massive impact in terms of a ripple impact on team morale and long-term organizational performance. And actually, what we see is, whilst many team members might stay, courageous team members actually make a decision. They walk with their feet. They leave these types of poor managers. And that's an impact on the organization. We lose amazing people from the team who we want to stay just because they've quit, because they can't see a way to move forward. The good news is it's not too late to course correct. And we need to remember that leadership and management isn't about control, it's about trust, respect, and enabling people's growth. And creating this psychological safe space for our team members. And these are some of the traits that have become non-negotiable for leaders. So this is one of the reasons why I created the Unbridled Teamship Roadmap. It is a way for you to create a lasting leadership legacy and the behaviors that you need to do in order to achieve that. And we also have a program for emerging leaders as well on some of the practical skills that you need in order to be a great manager, giving feedback, setting goals, having courageous conversations. So if any of that resonates with you, please do reach out to me and let's have a quick conversation about that, because I know that if you're listening to this podcast, you're the type of leader who wants to create an environment where your team members thrive, and you want to mitigate any of the things that are creating poor performance, maybe through your own behavior or through the way the business is structured. So my thought for you this week is become aware of when those 15 horrible managers show up, because they will. So they will show up at points throughout the day, and just be really cognizant of them and think about, what could I be doing differently in this moment that would be much more inspiring and motivating and engaging for my team members, so that I can help move this business forward and we can all flourish and thrive rather than just survive. So thank you again for your time again this week. I hope you found this interesting, this slightly different take on what some of the horrible leadership behaviors are that I've been seeing in the workplace, and I've seen in the workplace over my 30 years of working there. And I'd encourage you to do your absolute best to mitigate these wherever possible. Okay, until next week. Bye-bye.